Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town Board of the Town of Ossining work session for April 21st, 2020.
You bet.
If you could have the flag, and then I would ask everybody to please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, now I'm just going to plug in my headphones and maybe I'll get rid of the flag. I will be able to talk to you guys. Maybe you won't have to hear as much background noise. Okay. If you are not me, you might want to mute yourself for right now. Is that good? Okay, thank you. So before we continue, I would just ask everyone to take a moment to think of all of the families who have been affected by coronavirus this week. Some people are mourning without the comfort of spiritual rituals. There are people who are anxious about loved ones in hospitals, but they cannot visit to offer comfort. Same goes true for nursing homes. There's a lot of grief and fear in our community right now, and I just want to acknowledge that. And I want to ask everyone to just pause for a moment of silence in honor of all of the families who are suffering right now. And just to let everybody know that like towns, cities, and villages across the state, we have lowered our flags to half-mast in honor of those who we have lost. I'm going to start with some announcements before we get into our work session material. And there are quite a few of them, just so you know. I want to bring everybody up to speed on what's been going on. But before discussing the impact of the coronavirus this week on our town, I want to talk about a few topics that we don't want to let slip under the radar. Everyone by now should have received a census survey in the mail, and this would have been the 4th mailing. So if you haven't completed it yet, if you completed it after the 1st mailing, you wouldn't have gotten a 2nd mailing if you completed it after the 2nd or 3rd mailing. But at this point, it means that you haven't completed the census yet, and you should have received a mailing that allows you to fill out a paper survey and return it by mail. So if you had any reason to not fill it out online, now you have the opportunity to fill out the paper survey. However, of course, if you just haven't gotten around to it yet, you still can fill it out online and you can still do it, respond by phone, etc. As everybody knows, the census is a national survey. It's taken every 10 years to count all of the residents of the United States and then split up all the resources somewhat equitably, we shall say. We're all hyper aware right now of all of the resources that we are relying upon and that may or may not be on pause. Our schools, parks, healthcare clinics, our representation in government, and our businesses. After evaluating the data received, the census distributes nearly $4 trillion over the course of the next decade. If you didn't receive a copy of the census in the mail, then you should actually go online and fill out the census, but you do need to have your number. So you should contact the U.S. Census Bureau for more information and to make sure that you do get counted. Response rates are a key part of the census. Every resident should be counted regardless of citizenship or age. College students and preschool children are consistently undercounted across the country. I will say that if you have a college student who is supposed to be at college, they would have already been counted by that college, so you should not be counting them here, even if they are here with you now at home. By working together to get a 100% response rate, Ossining will ensure that it has access to the valuable resources that we so deserve. Of course, this is more acutely felt during these times of emergency. There is every dollar and every piece of supply that is considered essential in disaster avoidance and relief somehow ties to how much we get, ties to how many people we have here. Ossining loses $2,500 for each resident that's not counted. Right now, our response rates in Ossining are behind those of some of our neighboring municipalities. So we really want people to help us get the word out, fill out your census, challenge your friends and family to do so, and you can go to www.census.gov online, again, to get more information. And now, continuing on, I want to thank the entire Ossining community for your patience and flexibility during this very difficult time. Your input and communication have been imperative in helping services run smoothly. Our Senior Services Department continues to make daily "Are you okay?" calls to elderly residents who may need supplies or just someone to talk to, as well as to deliver food to our homebound seniors living alone. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that from Kathy Sorrow, who's joining us this evening for our work session. Our food scrap recycling program has continued to grow in popularity, and we assume that that's because everybody's home. And they're eating a lot, and they're making a lot of food from scratch, hopefully, and even if not, they have a lot of food that can be recycled and go back into our natural stream instead of having to go to our burn plant. Town staff has shifted to remote workplaces when able, forwarding their phones and answering emails at their kitchen tables, makeshift offices, and hopefully soon from decks, yards, and balconies if they have them. Our town clerk has been basically holding down the fort at 16 Croton and making sure that people do not pass go, do not get past her. They do not have a mask or a reason to be in the building. We will also be hearing more from our town clerk, Sue Donnelly, a little bit later in the session. Our other staff members whose services require leaving the safety and security of their homes, to them we are eternally grateful. Our highway and parks departments, including those who work at Dale Cemetery, which has unfortunately been extremely busy lately. Our refuse contractors and our emergency first responders, of course, are working hard to keep us safe and disinfect commonly shared spaces. So we thank all of those of you who are on the front lines as essential workers, and appreciate our residents for being patient. Many residents have questions about the upcoming town-county taxes that are due on April 30th. Friday afternoon, the Westchester County Board of Legislators passed legislation to significantly reduce the penalties for late payment of taxes to 0.5% in May and then 1% through July 15th. But this was not yet signed by our county executive. However, we learned today that the governor signed an executive order last night that may supersede or supplement this legislation and allow municipalities to eliminate penalties for late payment of town and county taxes for those who can demonstrate hardship due to the coronavirus pandemic based on criteria set by the county executive. We still have not received guidance from Westchester County to learn how this executive order will interact with the legislation passed on Friday, or what the criteria would be for determining hardship, nor who would determine it, or if that legislation just goes away completely. Please be patient as we navigate this recent change in law regarding taxation. I know many people have been calling our receiver's office and probably also our clerk's office and our assessor's office asking questions about this, and we don't have all the answers yet. It's constantly changing. So please do stay tuned for updates from my office or from tax receiver Holly Perlowitz's office and or communication from the county in the coming days. Again, I would like to reiterate that if you are in a position to pay your taxes on time, please do so. By paying your taxes on time, you will help the town and county continue to provide the necessary services that we all rely upon, while also looking out for your neighbors who might be unable to pay at this time, on time. Please sign up for e-blasts from us at townofossining.com/CMS, M as Mary, /contacts/email-sign-up, exclamation point. Oh no, that exclamation point is just mine. You don't have to put that in. That's the best way to be sure you will get the most up-to-date information from us. This executive order also impacts processes of the assessor's office in terms of when the final roll will need to be filed. However, the preliminary 2020 assessment change notices will still be in the mail tomorrow, Wednesday, April 22nd. So look out for them coming to your mailbox very, very soon. Please review your value and compare it to recent sales of similar properties in your neighborhood. If you do not agree with your value, the package you receive in the mail will include information and instructions to schedule an informal review with a Tyler representative via telephone or email. We encourage you to call or go online to set up an appointment as soon as possible. As of today, informal hearings will be conducted on May 12th. Will be conducted until May 12th, until May 12th, but that may change because of the change from the executive order last night. If you have any questions, please give our assessor's office a call at 914-762-8274. They are happy to help in any way they can. Of course, they're not going to have all the answers either yet, but hopefully we can continue to work together to find out those answers and get them to you. If you have questions about any of our other town services, please visit our website at townofossining.com for our department emails and phone numbers. And again, we are at your service, except for our town courts, which have been shut down and are not now to reopen until May 30th, as I understand it. The good news, as I am sure you have heard, is that the number of those testing positive or requiring hospitalization for coronavirus the number is starting to flatten out. Meaning, while we are still seeing new cases daily, they're not jumping up at the same rate as they were a week or so ago. I did not receive numbers this afternoon, but I know that the unincorporated town was in the high 80s and the Village of Ossining was in the high 300s, I think, as of yesterday, and the Village of Briarcliff, I think, was just under 60. Thankfully, it looks like the impact of all of our social distancing measures is helping. We also know that the pause order has been extended through May 16th. Is that right? I think that's right, May 16th. Keep getting May 16th and May 30th. Is that, Christy, is that right, May 16th?
May 15th. So
May 15th.
if
okay.
it's not further extended, May 16th would be the first day that it's over.
Okay, right. So May 15th.
Right.
And we know that we're hoping that planning group that is working to restart New York will come up with thoughtful ways for us to safely phase back in our regular work. We need to do this if we expect to maintain a situation which will not overwhelm our healthcare system beyond recovery. Last week, the governor advised that those living in New York should wear masks if they will be in a position where social distancing is not possible, including in cabs, trucks, and trains. Even outside, it's often hard to avoid overlapping paths with people while you're out enjoying some fresh air. The high number of cases we have in Ossining serves as a reminder that we all owe this act of prevention to each other, our fellow community members. Our health and the health of our dedicated essential workers relies completely on our adherence to medical guidelines. So please, please wear a mask. Volunteerism, donations, and programs to help support residents has been on the rise and is exceptionally inspiring. My friends Nancy Edelman and Nellie Garcia have organized a group of community sewers to make masks. Village staff members are managing meal trains to feed hospital workers. Thank you, Sue Donnelly. The library hosts story times for young kids stuck at home. Our recreation department offers boredom busters daily. Our school superintendent reads a book to kids on Facebook every day, I think at noon. As a reminder, if you or someone you know needs help navigating the abundance of information out there, please do not hesitate to reach out to our offices. Town staff is here for you. In fact, our website has a detailed guidance document to many of the resources available in the local, county, state, and federal levels. So please check that out. And thank you to Maddie Zahach for working on that and coordinating, and everybody who has contributed to it. For residents who are interested in our food distribution program, the Galata House has been offering free meals every Friday afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Stop and Shop parking lot in Ossining. The Village of Ossining and the town have continued to partner with Feeding Westchester to offer weekly food distributions on Tuesdays, usually at the community center and at Market Square and at Star Bethlehem Church. So it's morning, afternoon, and evening. I know that the school district continues to distribute food every day at around 11 o'clock at Park School, and that they are also teaming up with Feeding Westchester for a couple times a month additional distribution. Specific locations and times have changed, so please check in weekly for specific instructions. You can definitely check that out on the village website, and I think we are also linking to that on our town website. The Ossining Food Pantry is also open to residents for gift cards that they can use. If you need help, please send an email to osfoodpan@gmail.com to be added to their list, and they will make sure that you can get food. They're not operating in the same way that they have been. Be aware that some are not accepting new volunteers to help keep their circle healthy, but there are many other ways to support these groups. Many of our neighbors need extra help and attention, so please try to support these groups if you can. Local businesses have adapted to these times as well. Facebook, we're circulating a list of restaurants that are open for deliveries and takeout. We are also sharing a list of businesses that are offering services via teleconference, virtual shopping, and remote lessons. We know there are more amazing businesses to include in these lists, so we ask everyone to please let us know which ones to add, as well as help share them and support where you can. The Ossining PTA, schools, and Ossining Library have curated vast remote learning options for all ages, as I know that Briarcliff Schools and Briarcliff Library has as well. If you're a parent interested in engaging your child in these classes, you can reach out to ossiningptacouncil@gmail.com or M. Mastrogiacomo, which is Megan Mastrogiacomo, at ossiningufsd.org. For the Ossining Public Libraries or Briarcliff Public Libraries offerings, visit their websites, Facebook, or Instagram pages. Also, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that tomorrow, April 22nd, is Earth Day. Please take some time to learn what you can do from home to protect our natural resources from the comfort of your couch. Sustainable Westchester is also hosting a panel discussion tomorrow from 9:30 to 1 p.m. And Ms. Sipos and Ms. Lockwood from the Ossining School District are hosting an Earth Day Hangout live at 1 p.m. I think it might be on Facebook, or check out the Ossining UFSD website to find out what time you can find them and tune in. And you can have a full day of learning and even doing some good work for our environment. I also did get a couple of good ideas, if I can find them, for you to celebrate at home. And that includes thinking about, instead of using paper towels, you can try using cotton towels or cotton napkins for other tasks where you don't really need paper towels, and you can wash them. They will not only conserve and stretch your supply, it may also save you money and limit the amount of waste you generate. Turn off water when it's not in use, when you're brushing your teeth or washing your dishes, or even when you're counting and singing happy birthday to 20, you can turn the water off while you scrub your hands. Then you can rinse your hands after that. Another way to conserve is to only do your laundry when you have a full load. This will save money, energy, and water. Many of us are working from home. Because of this, you may notice an increase in your utility bill. Conserve energy and money during quarantine by unplugging electronics when you're not using them, shutting lights off when you aren't in the room, and taking advantage of more daylight by opening the curtains and using natural light instead of your electricity. And with that, the good news is that I am at the end of my announcements. So do any of my board colleagues have anything to add to that very lengthy list? No? Councilwoman Feldman, are you sure? Councilwoman Shaw? That's a no. Okay. Hearing none. I'm looking at this very strange image. Oh, now I see. Okay, Councilman Meyer and Councilman Wiltshire. Right now on my screen, you look like you're actually one person with two heads. It's very interesting. Okay. In any case, neither one of you, the two-headed councilmen, have any additions. All right. Fantastic. So this evening, we have a few staff members who are joining us with updates and reports, and we are going to start with Kathy Asaro, who is the site director for our senior nutrition program. Our senior staff has been very, very busy and truly on the front lines, continuing to serve our community's senior citizens with daily Are You OK calls and meals, as I previously mentioned. Kathy was supposed to join us for one of our meetings in March, but with the changes to our schedule, we decided to put her off till tonight. So Kathy, please give us an update as to all that you have been doing in holding down the fort and all that your amazing staff has been doing as well.
Thank you. we're still delivering meals at a distance, wearing gloves and masks and sanitizing our hands in between each delivery. We hang a bag on the door, ring the bell, stand back, and wait for them to answer. We're doing about 15 congregate people that used to come in to the dining room who are home alone. And we've cut back a little bit on our home delivered meals because they have family living with them, just to cut back a little for people who really do need our services. We're getting another delivery of storage stable cases of produce on Thursday, which will be apples, oranges, potatoes, carrots, onions, which we're going to have to bag up and get moving out the door probably in a couple of days. It's going to probably take a couple of days. I don't know how much they're sending. They're sending 100 bags for us to fill, so that should be good. So we can even call up some of our seniors that have been driving past the square to see if they need anything else. They can swing by and we'll just put a bag in their car. Debbie, our social worker, has been in touch with a lot of our seniors, just helping them with, they're just lonely. They don't know, they have no one to talk to. So we've been taking turns doing calls and calling other seniors that are not on our old Are You OK program, seniors that used to come in for lunch, and seniors that are home with their family, but they're all working and they're still kind of alone because they're all in different rooms. So we're keeping up with that. I've been keeping up with vouchering to the county to keep the money coming in, hopefully. And we've been picking up our C-Town orders from outside. We call up, it's ready. We go up, stay outside. They bring it to the car, put it in the trunk, and we're doing that for our cold meal delivery. And let me see, Lynn's working from home every other day that Debbie's not there. They're taking turns coming in now. And she's keeping up with the county reporting to our Peer Place, their Peer Place reporting system.
Do you know about how many meals you're delivering in total a week at this point?
A week? Well, it's 30 times 5, 150.
But is that both the cold meals and the hot meals?
No, that's not even counting the cold meals. That's another 50. So about 200 meals a week.
Got it. Right. Okay. So we thank you for that. And just in terms of those seniors who might have been congregate seniors and now are with families, so we're not delivering. I know that I had mentioned to you that we have some resources
Right.
through some of our volunteer groups. So I just hope that you have an opportunity to reach out to Beth Sniffen or Lisa Rudley to make sure that if they do want to continue to get meals delivered, that we make sure that they can, because we do have a lot of volunteer resources.
Right. Yeah, I know most of the seniors that do come in for a lunch are living with family. There's 15 of them that don't, so
Right.
They're getting a meal home.
Okay, just because, I know that I think the food pantry is actually delivering meals now to people. I heard that Neighbors Link is delivering meals to some of their folks. And, as I mentioned before, through a combination of volunteers and Feeding Westchester, there's another, a few more avenues to make sure that everybody gets the food that they need. So, and we want to make sure that continues to happen.
Right.
We're very grateful for all the work you're doing. I know that you guys have also at some point were pitching in to help with bagging up some of the food for the Feeding Westchester district.
Oh yeah, Feeding Westchester. Yeah.
Are you still doing that? Are you still helping out with that too?
They have it covered, I think. They don't want too many people in the room.
Right.
So they did a lot of bags yesterday. I've seen them.
Well, we know that the need is getting greater and not the other way around, unfortunately. So.
Right. Yep, and we're there. We're there to help them. If we can just order more food I know the caterer's doing frozen meals also, just in case something happens with his food supply. He'll be sending us all these meals that he has put in the freezer.
And we have the storage for that too?
The county got him a freezer truck, so he could start doing that just in case
That's great.
some of the food supply chains can't make it to him. So that's what he's doing on weekends.
All right. Do I have any questions from board members for Kathy right now, or comments?
I just wanted to say, I mean, it's great that you're delivering food, but it's also wonderful that you're attending to the social and the mental health aspect as well, because we're seeing a lot of depression and anxiety. So it's wonderful that you're taking time to speak to people and give them someone to talk to. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We do a bunch of people a day, and they call us, we call them, they call each other. You know, we encourage them, call each other, and they do. So they're doing okay. They
How
just
many of
can't
them
back.
are computer friendly or computer literate? Any?
Some of them are. I mean, probably some of them are more computer literate than I am.
Okay, we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Just joking.
Thanks, Dana. No, some of them are. Some of them aren't. You know, some of them don't have a computer. You know.
Yeah.
Some of them are. I know
Yeah, just
some of
because,
them are.
you know,
They have
I'm just wondering if the county has any resources that they're offering right now through the senior nutrition programs that, you know, or you know, some guides that we can give to the seniors of things that they can do with their computers to keep them
I
occupied.
know they were doing, a lot of them were doing computer classes with Open Door. The Open Door got a grant to do computer classes with the seniors, and they like that. So some of them do have computers.
But I mean, like, you know, you could play bingo online, those sort of things, you know.
Yeah.
Things
Oh,
that
yeah.
they
Know how to.
They could do chair yoga online. They could do, you know, there's like a lot of things. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm doing my exercise classes online now, so I don't want to miss out on my exercise. What'd you say?
Good. That's good. A lot of them just go out walking.
Right, which is also great. And
They're out walking, yeah.
Have you identified anything that they need? Have they been able to get their groceries? Have they been able to get their medications? Is this something they need help with, or identifying what pharmacies deliver? Have you found needs going on in this community?
I know CVS delivers. I know Ride Connect is helping seniors with shopping and that kind of thing.
But do they know that?
Oh, yeah. If anybody calls in and needs help, yeah. Sometimes Jenny goes and picks up stuff for some of the seniors also.
Okay, so they know that we're willing to either help them or find a resource for them.
Right.
Whatever their challenges are.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
fantastic.
Appreciate the work you're doing. Okay.
Okay, so if are there any other questions for Kathy before we let her say goodnight? No? All right, well, thank you so much, Kathy, and keep up the great work and make sure that everybody stays healthy, because that's what we need.
We're trying.
I know. Make sure you wear those masks and keep your
healthy.
6 foot distance, masks and gloves.
Right.
Make sure we keep everybody healthy. All
Hand sanitizer.
Absolutely. Okay. I think we still have more of that in the clerk's office or near the clerk's office. Yes. Do we still have more hand sanitizer if needed? We have the big bottles over there if you need it.
We have the big bottles over there.
A few of them for our departments.
Right.
Not a lot left, but we have a few.
We still have a half a bottle, plus we have Danny put up some hand sanitizer machines. One in the kitchen, one out in the dining room.
Okay, that's awesome.
And there's one upstairs.
Awesome. You guys aren't going upstairs, so that's great. But
only when I have to.
okay.
Only to see if Bill's up there.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Have a great night, Kathy. Thanks again.
Thanks. You too. Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
You too.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Honorable Suzanne Donnelly with us, and it's a little unusual for a work session, But Sue was, when she was elected clerk, one of her main priorities was to modernize and digitize the office as much as possible. There are a few office functions that are currently available online, which includes death certificates, renewal of dog licenses, and FOIL requests. Right now, with our offices closed to the public due to the coronavirus, this effort to make applications, permits, and other materials available online has become perhaps even more important. Sue has been working closely with a company called Seamless Docs to learn how their software offerings may be able to offer us even more, if not all, of the town clerk functions online. So doing so will help resume revenue collections attributed to this office and hopefully address some of our budgetary concerns, which we will be discussing a little bit later this evening. So I'm going to hand it over to Sue now to explain what she is proposing. Madam Clerk.
Well, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. Yes, we've been working with this company before the coronavirus really hit, because it was our goal to do whatever we could to modernize the way that forms are done. One of the when the coronavirus first hit, one of the things that they offered to do one form. Getting me seasick there.
Sorry, I'm trying to get you what you need.
Was to give us one form. So I thought about it, and what I wanted to have the ability to do is, with the administrations of the town and village, because this is a town and village department, we need to review some of the forms that we have quite a few of the forms, just to modernize them a little bit, to make sure we get all information on them, such as emails and phone numbers and stuff. So what we took on was, we asked Seamless Docs to put not the application that we fill out for marriage licenses, but we took all the pertinent information off of that. And we have, for the last 2 months, been issuing marriage licenses. And how we do it is, they go online, they fill out the marriage license, application, they put in their all their information, and we are allowed to, with this software, actually encrypt any line that we want to. So we encrypt their social security numbers. They send us a copy of their birth certificates and their driver's license or their passport. And we can have this application. Then they send it to us, and it comes in as a Seamless Doc will come in to my computer. And what happens then is, we can produce the marriage license for them. So we call them up, they get an appointment. They come to the office, they call us from the parking lot, and it's almost like, I'm sure many of you don't remember this, but we used to have car hop service. So especially when we had like A&W root beer and stuff. So wait, I'm dating myself terribly now. So what we do is, we go out to the car, we show them the application that's all filled out, they approve it, or we make any corrections that need to be made. And then we go back and they sign it. We go back in. It costs $40 for a marriage license. And it checks only. Oh, by the way, let's emphasize, we do not take cash in the office at this time. And we go back in, we stamp it, we sign it. And a process that used to take between 20 and 30 minutes with someone standing at the counter now takes you 5 minutes to input the information and 5 minutes at the car. So it's a 10-minute process. So eventually what we'll do is, we won't even have to do that part. And with the executive order that the governor signed, I guess it was yesterday because it came out Sunday. I've totally lost track of days, so I apologize if I lose it. With the executive office, we can actually do Zoom marriage licenses and Zoom marriage ceremonies, which is something that we're all putting together in the next day or two. So we are steps ahead of that, because we already have all the information coming to us. What we can't do with this particular form right now is to take the payment online, because it's a test form. So we'll be able to take a credit card payment for the tests. That's an example. So I have been working with the people. We have some exceptional people working with us from Seamless Docs. Very efficient, very great training department, great support department, are there whenever you call. And so we put together this list and we sat with them and we talked about a price that would be advantageous to both the town and the village for this software. It's a software service. It's not, you don't buy the software, you actually pay each year for the software. And I started looking at other municipalities that had the software, and Croton has the software, Rye has the software, we'll see that in a second. And so what we did was we put together this proposal because we think that this is the answer for Ossining. It's not going to be overnight. I want to stress to people that it's not going to be overnight because of the fact that we need to review each form. We need to make sure that it's very, very efficient with what information we need on it, what information we can take off of it. We have some forms that still ask for a notary for a signature, which there's no reason for that. So what we did was we put together this proposal, and this is our business plan that Ellie Epstein and I put together, exceptional young lady. And so to propose to you, you all received it in the mail. We're not going to read it line for line, but it tells us what our challenges are, tells us what our considerations are. It says right now, if you go to page 2, to the one that says recommended forms for conversion. So on my right, I guess everybody's right, it says 10 forms for the village and 15 forms for the town. And some people are pretty surprised with that, but what it doesn't have on there, it doesn't have any of our parking for the village. And as you all know, we do a tremendous amount of forms for parking too, but that's in the middle of a major project. So when we get that done, it will be put on there too. But for the town of Ossining, or the town of anybody, we do marriage licenses, we do death certificates, we do birth certificates, we do handicap parking permits, we do notices of claim for both, we do I'm trying to think, cabaret licenses. We do so many different licenses, initial dog licenses. I will say thank you to everyone that renewed their dog licenses over the last month, because I think people staying home had the opportunity to send in their renewals. We can sit down and look at all the some of the packages that we have now, like the dog renewal that we do out of the other piece of software that we use, which is BAS. So we can decide whether it will be advantageous for us just to do the dog renewals right with this same package as an example. But it's pretty interesting, so all the stuff. Everybody okay? It's pretty interesting, all the
Are
stuff.
you hearing my background noise? Is that what you're hearing?
Something.
Yes.
And it gives us an opportunity not to only to review every document, but to review the fee structure for every document and to renew, because in some cases, it's an unbelievable amount of paperwork that has to be turned in every single year on some of these forms. Now, what we'll look for is we'll look for renewal forms. So let's say that you have, I'm going to use, for example, something that you've all seen lately, cabaret licenses. Well, cabaret licenses should be, did you make any changes to your cabaret license? Because it's still going to have to get a police approval and a building department approval. But at least we'll have saved in files their old forms. It won't just be a scanned in document or in a box somewhere. So it is such a relief to have found this product that people are using. Excuse me. If you look at the next page, okay, then it shows you the marriage licenses. I will tell you that as of today, we've done 9 marriage licenses with this system. The only people that couldn't do it was a lovely older couple. I was very pleased to help them, though. And they actually pointed out some of the changes that we needed to make to this marriage license so it was easier to use. So it was very interesting how we did that. We have on the first page, if you look on the little tiny, it's your left-hand side page, we have actually the first thing that they open up is they open up an instruction sheet. That instruction sheet then opens up and each one of them fills out a form. The instruction sheet, because of the new executive order, will have to change because it tells you everything that you have to do, including coming to the office after you filled out everything and finishing up the paperwork. We won't have to do that because we'll take things by credit card. So, and then the next page will, the problem, seamless stocks, okay, we can convert, it's very interesting that how fast you can convert an existing form too. It takes approximately 5 minutes to convert the form. Then you start looking at the different lines on the form as to what you want to encrypt. If you want to delete a line, if you want to add a line, it's an extremely easy program to use, which I, of course, love. So then I think we're going to skip right over to this page right here on my right. I have to look at my hand sometimes. And it tells different software packages, what they do compared to Seamless Doc. So we're very happy with that. I know that you all read this already, so we don't have to go through every detail on it. And then the next page is change is possible. I will tell you that they have been, as I said before, they have been unbelievably helpful with this whole putting this together, going through it, meeting their training people, meeting their support staff. It's been very interesting. So if you look at one of their highlighted partners is Croton-on-the-Hudson. And what I started doing when I first took office in January is I started going into all the other clerks' pages to see who had documents who had licenses and permits and documents that could be done electronically. And Croton was right there. And they have even more. They have different applications. It will allow us to grow our applications because it will be easier for the end user to fill it out. They have a block party application. We want to know, I've been working with the building departments because we don't have a business license or anything in town, but we certainly want to know who our businesses are in town. And so we've been building this database of the different businesses in town. So this will help us tremendously do that. The next page is different communities that do it. There's Croton, as I said before, City of Rye, Town of Rye, Hastings-on-Hudson. So it is in Westchester County. It is being used by people. And as they told me today, not today, yesterday on the phone, they said, it's almost like you were just ahead of the curve. Well, the coronavirus has made it essential that you be able to do forms. We have so many forms that somebody has to bring a piece of paper into the office or they have to mail us a piece of paper. But we want to get it so we can do this all electronically. And I think it's just a no-brainer. Don't yell at me for looking my papers like that. So what we did was we worked with the people. We explained that we are a unique situation. We are not the village of Croton-on-the-Hudson, and we are not the City of Rye or the Town of Rye. We have one clerk that does both the Town of Ossining and the Village of Ossining business. So we expected from them a proposal that we could present to the two of them, that it would be one package, however, 2 different credit cards. So we collect credit cards for the town and we collect credit cards from the village. So we would have to be able to differentiate the different forms from the town and the village. They came back to us and they said, okay, we can do that, we can handle that. And we set it up so that the digitized, the part of what we asked them to propose to us, I'm trying to get to the page, I apologize. I don't want to touch my mouth, even though I've washed my hands 1,000 times since I've been home. And I wash them all day at work. Okay, so what we said to them is we're looking for the digitized package. We're looking for payment integration, which means that you go online, you fill out your application, you pay. And therefore, they're not coming in with checks and cash and stuff into the office. And then for the first year, we would have what they call standard onboarding, which is training and support. So, but because they know they spend a lot of time with you the first year, that's a standard rate. So they would have for the first year, it would be $11,595 divided by the 2 municipalities. So I think that was an exceptional acceptable for them to come back with that price, and then the next year would be $10,000, and the next year after that would be $10,000, again, divided by 2. It is something that maybe we did not budget for, but we certainly budgeted, we certainly will see with this increased revenues, simply because people will understand that there's such things out there as dog licenses. And I use that, I know everybody thinks that's so cute, but it's very true. We have maybe at this point 500 dog licenses. I believe I have 500 dogs live in my neighborhood. So we have a long way to go with dog licenses. So, but it allows us to go to people and tell them that they need an alarm, and tell them that they need to, they need an alarm permit, and say, come, well, I'll show you online where it is. And I have no problems encouraging people and having the building department encourage both municipalities to encourage people to get the proper permits that they should have for their businesses. That's it.
All right. So thank you for that
Oh,
presentation.
Can I say one other thing?
Yeah.
I want to take a second to thank Liz Feldman, because the GoFundMe for feeding OVAC and feeding Phelps, we feed OVAC every other night. We stop them from eating pizza every night, and they'll kill me for saying that. But and I just counted today because I was talking to someone at Phelps. This GoFundMe, this community, this Briarcliff and Austin community has donated enough money to pay for 11 of the meals for Phelps until May 8th, and every other night until about May 8th so far. This is our so far.
Mhm.
So I want to thank Liz Feldman for being an intricate part, because we all got our restaurants that we had to, it's only Austin and Briarcliff restaurants, so we worked very hard on getting that done. So that's only my little speech for the night.
Well, teamwork makes the dream work. So
Right.
That's Cammie's line. We'll give it to her. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for that presentation. I think that one of the things that we're going to be talking about in a little bit is our budget and where we need to make cuts and not making any unnecessary expenditures. Unfortunately, there are certain types of activities that require that we do make some expenditures so that we can offset or recapture revenues that we otherwise aren't able to capture. And as we look at how to modernize services in the clerk's office, it's, I think more obvious than ever before why we need to be doing this. And it sounds to me like you have negotiated a very reasonable package, and to be paying half of the cost that other municipalities would be paying for having that service seems like a pretty reasonable price. But I want to hear what everybody else has to say about this, because again, I think that, it's about time that we do this, but more than just being about time, I think we have to do this. So please, let's hear what everybody has to say right now.
all right, so while I agree, it's time and it's important to do this. One of my questions is, do we feel that the town and the village will be using 50% each of this software, or do you think one will be using it more than the other?
I think that in this particular instance, that the town and the village will be using 50% because of the fact that we have so many functions in the town that that we don't have in the village, such as inquiries about marriage licensing, inquiries about birth certificates. That's all a town function. So because we have these odd things that don't seem to be time consuming, they are extremely time consuming. They're extremely time. Oh, sorry, I lost you guys. Can you see me still, or did I?
Yeah. No, we're fine. We see you.
I don't know what happened to me. So I'm just going to talk to you. So yes, in this particular instance, I do feel that this is a 50-50 proposition. That's one of the reasons that we put together that page that told you how many forms currently we use. There are more forms for the town and there's more forms for the village. And I figure we will probably both end up with about 20 forms each for each municipality. But it's going to help us in the clerk's office. It's going to help us immensely with the amount of time that we spend with each customer at the counter. Not that we want to not spend time with the customers at the counter, but we want them to do stuff out of the comfort of their own home. We hate sending people away when they don't have the right information with us. And so I think that in this particular case, yes, it's a 50-50 proposition, because we were very detailed on what we looked at to do this.
I mean, the other thing is, it's not just that it's, I don't think you can, there's certain types of things that you can't just look at the use, because this is an offset. In other words, if we weren't with the village and we just wanted to purchase it, we would have to pay the full cost.
Right.
So by partnering with the village, it reduces our cost by half. So, I understand that, sometimes it makes a lot of sense to look at the percentage of use, but it doesn't always. In this case, I think we're looking at the offset factor of being able to share it with another municipality.
Well, you're looking for the offset, and you're absolutely right, Supervisor, but on the other side of the coin, the amazing part of this one is that in filling out forms, because just because we don't get money for a handicap license, handicap tag, because they're given out, that's a town function, and that's something that we want to have it sent into us so we can just mail them the tag. You know what I mean? It's so there is a lot of information that we do with the town now that is not, it's not the big bells and whistles. It's just the behind the scenes forms and that we have to do every day. And you would be shocked at how many people need copies of things like marriage license and divorce. We don't do divorces, please. Oh my God. Somebody came in, they go, all right, I'm ready for my divorce. And I said, no, wrong. That's a court thing. Let's go to White Plains. Because the enhanced driver's license, before this all started with the coronavirus, the enhanced driver's license, which everyone was going to have by November, required that you had birth certificates. It required, in some places, they required different things, which is a little strange for me. And some of them had to have marriage licenses. So it was very interesting of how many different forms that you might take every day that had to be filled out and had to be handed in. So it's going to be a good partnership with the village on this one.
Any other questions, comments from any of the board members?
I just had a quick question. So you never have to actually show the original documents of your passport or anything like that? A copy
No.
is going to suffice for this process?
So part of that's let's talk about the marriage license, because that's really where you have to show your birth certificate and your passport.
Right.
So right now what they do is they take a picture and they send it in with the application. What I do now is I go out to the car and I look at the two things have to happen with a marriage license. First of all, the couple has to come together. They have to be in the.
I know, I've done it in Austin.
So, and the second thing is you have to present all the documents that you sent. The advantage I have is that it was the advantage I had was that I could actually have looked at the document, confirmed the dates, done everything.
Right.
With the video camera, one of the things that's happening with the new Zoom marriage licensing and the marriage ceremonies is that was the big discussion of today with everybody is they'll have to sit on the Zoom and show us their passport, and they'll, it's almost like they're there, but it's like me touching you right now, but I can't. And so it's very interesting because nothing will be done. Like you couldn't have it where someone says, well, I don't have Zoom and I'm just going to call in. Well, that doesn't work.
Right.
So they're on camera with you doing this. So, and thank you to Victoria has already set me up with my Zoom for the town. So I'll be zooming all over the place. So yes, so they still have to show all the documents. It's, right now it's always raining lately. Did everybody notice that? So
Yes.
I walk out to these cars in the pouring rain.
Mm-hmm.
I take their stuff and I hustle back in to look at them because I don't want to, because they're not allowed in the building.
So will these documents and processes be available for expanded hours? Can they do it after work when the clerk's office is closed? Can they still fill it out and
Oh,
send
they
it
can,
to you
yes.
to be processed the next day? I mean, I like the idea of expanded hours, expanded access, and all of that.
Yeah, don't call it expanded hours, call it expanded access, because yes, in fact, 90% of them, I come in the morning and poof, it's on my screen waiting for me. So they can do it at their leisure, they can take their time, they're not, people are nervous, when you're getting married, you're nervous, and but they can fill out the forms the way they want to, and then they send it in, and then we'll process it. It's just, we're going, as we slowly go to a paperless office. I should never say the word paperless. There's never will be something like that down there. But when we go slowly to coming to putting as much online in files, because we have the redundancy. The first thing we checked was the redundancy. We have off-site storage, we have 2 on-site storages, and we have our PCs, and then we have our clerk directory. So we know that we have triple redundancy of our files. So as we go to that slowly but surely, first of all, it's faster for us to find documents that people need. And yes, but they can do whatever they want. Yeah, right now it is, we didn't have hours to do a marriage license, so people would show up. So that's why you saw things like on the wall, it would say, marriages licenses from 9:30 to 3:30, which is like almost ridiculous. People would have to take a day off. So what we do now is I say to them, go online, get that done. The advantage I have right now is when they have, until the other day when the executive order came out, they could come over during the day because most of them are working out of their houses anyway. So.
That's true. Those people are coming locally.
But yes, more access.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
I was just going to say that, I think it's important to get up to speed electronically in general, but given the pandemic, I think it's even more important than ever. So, I think this is a vital initiative. So thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Councilman Wilcher, anything?
Yeah, I just want to know, can you still come? Is this just during the pandemic, right?
No, this is not just for the pandemic, but Northern, you are always welcome to come to the office. Not you personally, but anyone is always welcome to come to the office and do their forms if they choose to. But
When it's not a pandemic.
but for a lot of the
When there's
people,
no pandemic, yes.
I'm sorry.
When there's no pandemic, but not right now.
When there's no pandemic, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
they can
what I
come
mean.
They can come when we're done with this pandemic. They will more than welcome to come into our office anytime. We carried on the bucket of candy. We did. We have all the other stuff going. So yes, they can. If someone's more comfortable coming in, then they are more than welcome. As I said before, I had an older couple who tried to do it online, showed me some of the deficiencies with the form. We fixed them immediately. They still came. They just couldn't come in the building, so they waited in the car. First of all, they were older, and we got their form done just as we did. We're always there for the residents and the business owners of Austin. Yes.
Okay, there's one more thing. I don't know, Marianne, maybe she didn't tell you, but I should have a fishing license.
Yes, and so yes, and right now, and it's going into hunting season. So I did. Hunting season.
It does? Oh, sure.
So what if you want us, not you in particular, Northern, but we have not been giving out fishing licenses since the pandemic. Only
Yeah, I know.
the pandemic. But what I'll do is I can call you and your lovely wife and your bride, and we can go over how we can get it right for you off the DEC. We do want to tell people that hunting and fishing licenses are available right through New York State on the DEC page. So they don't even have to come into the municipality. They can get it right there too.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
Okay.
But don't think I did know about your fishing license.
That was the first thing that Marion Roberts told Sue before she handed over the remains.
That's why I liked her.
Okay, so if everybody is done with questions, I would say thank you so much to Sue for your presentation tonight, and I'm very excited that you've taken this initiative. And again, you've been early in some regards. I mean, obviously, you know, there's communities who've already been, you know, implementing some of these things, but you've been early before pandemic has hit, where we know a lot of other municipalities who haven't taken the plunge yet into the modern world are going to be doing so. So thank you for doing that.
Right.
All
And
right.
we want to tell people that if they want, can I just make one more PSA? If you want to drop off, if you're listening and you want to drop off your county town taxes or your water bills or anything, or you come to the door, the side door, the one with the handicap ramp on it, and you knock on the door, you don't have to smash the door. We will come out and we will take whatever you have through the assessor's office. We will take it from you. We'll stamp whatever receipt you need, and for this, because of this emergency, and make sure that it gets to the right department.
Okay, when you say stamp receipt, you're not stamping, you're not receiving the taxes. So you're not actually giving them a tax receipt. So let's just be clear. You're just giving them, I received this in my hand. That's
Just
it.
saying the town clerk took this from you. And
Okay, that just to be clear. Okay,
No,
and then
I'm not a deputy of the tax receiver or anything, so
No.
I do not take taxes.
correct.
But we want to make it, and anybody that comes in, especially the seniors are coming in now with their assessor, their enhanced star applications, and we will take them from you. We ask that you wear a mask to the door. We're not going to open the door for people at this point that don't have masks on. Just simply put your mask on.
And just remind everybody also, we're not accepting cash. That's another thing we're not accepting. And finally, I do think that you want to also remind people, because I've neglected to do so in my announcements, that people should be applying for absentee ballots for primary.
Well, according to today, I think we have to wait a day or two for that, because rumor has it
Okay, I missed the rumor.
everybody might just get a ballot in the mail. So we just have to
Okay.
wait a day or two.
We did request that, by the way, on the county call, like you asked.
Yes, thank you.
Just so you
Because
know.
how crazy,
Okay.
you know.
Yes.
You can get your census at your house. You can get a ballot at your house. So, and we can get the little postcards that say you're a registered voter.
Right.
So, but let's see what happens over the next day or two. But we will be, once we hear whether that's a go or not, we will be super encouraging people to fill out their absentee ballots applications if that's the way that the state decides to go.
Okay, wonderful.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, up next, we have our planning consultant from Nelson Pope and Voorhees, Valerie Monastra. Valerie was brought onto our team in January, and she has been an invaluable asset to the town and to our land use board since then. We, of course, we've had limited meetings, but she's been an invaluable asset to the town. We have Valerie with us this evening for a brief report on what she has been doing behind the scenes, what she's been working on, and it's quite a lot actually, and some things that we are going to put back into motion with our land use boards and get them back up and running with Zoom, as well as a discussion of the status of some important projects like the comprehensive plan. And excuse the thunder in the background, please. I have a house full of young adults.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I thought I just I'm going to go through a number of different topics, and so I thought it would be easier. I will discuss a particular project or topic, and then I'll just ask the board if they have any questions before I go to the next one. Just that way you don't have to remember everything, and then we can kind of go through piece by piece. So first of all, I've been working with, as Dana said, with the town board, the planning board, and the comprehensive plan committee since the end of January. I'm going to talk a little bit about the planning board work. My first planning board meeting was in February, and since then we haven't had a planning board meeting. But I'm working closely with Sandy, and we are anticipating starting to go have all our meetings on online starting in May. So our first planning board meeting since the hiatus will be May 6th. And then we anticipate probably having two, both in May, because we have a pretty good backlog at this point, and we want to get as many applications through the process as possible. So the work that we've been working with Sandy and then also the planning board chair, Ching, we were talking about making things a little bit more efficient, and then also making sure that we communicate as much as possible with the applicants so that if there's ways that we can get their applications as complete as possible so that the planning board is actually able to review things efficiently, and then therefore it will cut back on the time that a particular applicant needs to appear before the boards. So that is pretty much in a nutshell the planning board work that has been in the last few months, and we look forward to getting these things back online because I know a lot of applicants are looking forward to moving forward with their projects. So does anybody have any questions on the planning board, or especially with the online meetings that are going to take place in May? Okay,
Good with that.
all right. So
Well,
that,
are we letting the public weigh in on these meetings? Is it going to be a Zoom meeting, or is this the kind of the pre-planning meetings and the going over it, not where the public weighs in? Meeting?
right, so that's a really good question. So the planning board meeting itself, we don't anticipate having any public hearings at the very first planning board meeting. The chair does sometimes open up for comments from the public. And so we are going to be setting up the Zoom meeting to allow for public comment. There potentially is going to be a planning board hearing in May. And so at which point that would also be allowed to, the public would also be able to contribute for both in Zoom, but then we're also going to make sure it's known that the public can also submit emails, phone calls, any other sort of public comments. And in working with other communities, especially if for some reason there is a particular controversial project, you can extend public hearings longer than one meeting to make sure that all public comments are heard. And usually working with the planning boards and trying to assess whether a particular project is going to have a lot of public out, have a lot of public come out to the meetings or would typically come out to the meetings, particularly for that particular application, that's when we'll adjust. But I think at this point, the current agenda, I think we'll have, there might be some interested in neighbors, but we don't anticipate a very large project appearing before the boards. But we'll take it basically application by application.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody who has a comment, knows they could comment and has an opportunity. So I expect we'll at least at first go very slowly and make sure everybody understands the process.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that Sandy and Ellie and I have been talking about. And I have a call that's going to be scheduled this week with the planning board chair to discuss those issues and those concerns to make sure that we have those avenues posted and that, as much as possible, we're able to have opportunities for public comment.
Thank you.
So the second item I wanted to talk a little bit about is this is now dealing with town board work. And I've been working, as you know, the board with the new solar permits that are coming in through the town board. Was working on the CVE application, and I believe the board is well aware that they have since withdrawn their application before the town board. But we had initial pre-app meetings with a few other potential applicants under the same solar permits. So I anticipate those to potentially be coming before the town board. So I'll be continuing reviewing those permits as well. We also had a couple inquiries on battery energy storage systems, and that leads us to leads me to a little bit of a segue for the board to consider potentially looking at adopting a model battery energy storage system. So energy storage systems, they are systems that are capable of storing energy in order to supply electrical energy at a future time. So these systems are not necessarily small systems, they can be much larger systems, and they're all part of the statewide community energy systems initiatives that New York State is pushing forward. And a number of, similar to the solar permit applications, a number of these battery energy storage companies are looking for larger lands, areas where they could potentially put these battery energy storage systems on properties that maybe have more than one use. And, typically under your zoning regulations, they would fall under as utilities. But you know, there is some concerns about operation, maintenance, decommissioning of these systems, that there is some suggestion to take a look at some model laws. And I know the town clerk actually sent an email over to the supervisor earlier this evening that the town of Yorktown is actually looking to adopt the model battery energy storage law as well. So this is something that, you know, I wanted to raise with the town board to see if we are interested in looking into a little bit more. And then clearly this would require input from the building inspector, because he would be primarily the one that would be implementing the permits associated with this after, you know, it would get whatever town board or planning board approval.
And also as fire inspector, I think he has a specific interest.
Yes.
This is
correct.
something that NYSERDA actually has been recommending that towns do adopt so that we don't get caught off guard when there are applicants looking to do this and find ways around it. That it is better for us to be proactive about this, because there are maybe opportunities for us to you know, look for multiple uses of properties where there might be already something developed that then this could add and enhance the development. So I think, you know, I think it behooves us to take a look at this before we get caught off guard and have to scramble and chase our tail around kind of to try to get it done.
So just so I'm understanding, these are microgrids, and would this energy be accessible for our population, or would it only be accessible for the applicant? You know, is the storage kind of for the community storage for people who provided solar, or only for the applicant, or is there multiple variations of this? And yes, I agree, we need to understand it and get it ahead of the builders.
Right. So I'll answer what I know. You know, this is a little bit new to me too, into some sense. I think for some of the application or the applicants or potential applicants that we have received some phone calls, they would be for not only their property, but also like more or less like a community battery energy storage. So it would be similar to what you heard presented from the CVE application, which is, you know, that people could buy potentially into a program, or Con Edison would be interested in setting up something on a particular site, and then it would feed into the overall system. I do believe that you can have varying sizes of the system. So some could just be for a particular property, but for the most part, what we have been hearing is for much larger systems that would not only help that particular property owner, but then also the larger community.
And I do think that this is a benefit for us to look at ways to be able to take ourselves off the main grid and have
Right.
microgrid available to our community. So a lot of times I believe you can actually negotiate, you know, a certain percentage of this has to go back to the community, and then the rest of it can go, you know, to the next community or whatever. So that can also be part of, I guess, theoretically part of our code. Maybe it's flexible depending on the size.
Right.
Okay, another
We get some
question.
info. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jackie, you can go ahead if you want.
I was just wondering, can we get some information on what these look like, how much space they take up, that kind of thing?
Right.
We were
Yes.
able to do like a walking tour of the solar panels probably a year or so ago, and so we really got a feel for what it looks like. So it would be nice if we had some kind of information or a picture or something, because I have no idea what this even looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll try to provide you some, you know, now that I know that the town board is definitely interested in this, we'll also start providing you some additional information. I do know, I will say this, that right now, technically, the zoning code allows for these things to, you know, similar to what John Hamilton brought up with the town board with, you know, there was no permitting for the solar, that that something needed to be done. Technically, the zoning code right now allows for these systems to be just, you know, developed on properties as long as they get planning board approval. And I think the larger issue is the operation, the maintenance, and the decommissioning of these systems, because they're not just these small little systems anymore. They're bigger, they're more powerful. And but I can say, you know, just a little bit of knowledge on these systems, that they don't take up a tremendous, they do take up smaller amounts of land than you would see as like a solar, some of the solar arrays. and they do not, they're not like towers, they are much smaller in size, but it's the safety factors that I think are of concern.
I think it's sort of like those olden days of mainframe computers where
Right.
it took up like a sort of a compact machine size
Right.
that kind of takes up a chunk of land that it's mounted on something, and
Right.
it isn't pretty, so it's something that most likely would be fenced in. You wouldn't want to see it. But I do think that there are probably places similar to, again, that make more sense than others. So
Yes.
you may want to
Exactly.
consider, where exactly they should be sited, how close or far from other things that might not be the best to be near, etc.
Right. And I think you're going to definitely see more of these types of systems, as we look for different alternative energies and these communities, energy systems. I think they're going to be, they're definitely something that's appealing to larger properties, maybe some of your institutional properties, maybe, so, and the town
Right.
has a number of them. So I think it's just, worth taking a look at.
Right. And
So
theoretically, it's going to
sorry.
add to the assessed value of those properties as well.
Well,
Because
that's
you're
my
bringing on
question.
another value. Yeah.
Right,
Yes.
that's my question. If they're considered a utility type thing, or if Con Ed produces it, does that take away from our ability to collect tax on that property? Does it enhance our ability to collect tax on that property? And then an aside, is a microgrid storage system something the town would want to look into for the municipality itself?
Right.
I
So
mean, wow.
I don't, with regards to the taxes, I would have to take a look at that a little bit more, but I'm venturing that, if it's not for, if it's a property that already doesn't pay taxes, I don't know if that would then be taxed. I would have to leave that to the tax assessor and some attorneys, and, that would all have to be looked into, but we can try to find that information for you.
I do think, just for little I know about, not-for-profits, if you do have a part of the not-for-profit property that is being leased out, for example, to a for-profit, I'm pretty sure that the whatever square footage of the property actually goes back onto the tax roll. But similar to solar panel installations, if in fact the state has legislation that incentivizes these installations because the state wants more of them, by giving tax break, there may be something like a pilot, like similar to the solar pilot, where there's a way to recoup some taxes. And again, it may depend on the entity, if it's a for-profit or not-for-profit. It may or it may not depend on the entity. If it's more of a utility, considered a utility or not. So I think that those are all good things that we need to look at.
Absolutely.
What is the model legislation? What are they recommending for taxes? And NYSERDA, I know, does have model law right now. Is that right?
That's correct. They do. And I was also going to reach out to the town of Yorktown to see what prompted their decision on that, and if they made any tweaks to the model law, because it looks like they're following the NYSERDA model law to a larger extent.
Okay, so the answer is yes, please do pursue this. And that's my guess from hearing everything from the town board, that we'd like to get more information and see what works for us.
Okay.
So
Sounds
just
good.
to, as the board went through when you did the solar energy systems law, it was a thorough process. There were work sessions, there were public hearings. So this will just be the start of it, and you'll have plenty of opportunity to look at what the model law says and make changes accordingly to see how it would work best in this community.
Thank you.
All right, great.
Okay.
So then I'm going to move on to the Indian Brook Croton Gorge watershed plan. I'm sure the town is aware that this is back in 2009. There was a Indian Brook Croton Gorge watershed plan that was completed, and it was a collaboration between the town of Cortland, Village of Ossining, town of Ossining, town of Newcastle, and the Village of Croton on Hudson. And since then, through the town of Cortland, this group received $50,000 from the New York State DEC Hudson River Estuary Program to develop an overlay, an intermunicipal zoning overlay to protect the watershed and the watershed lands. So the next steps in this particular project, the town of Cortland planner Chris Kehoe reached out to the town, and they're looking to develop a request for proposal for this particular for the overlay, and they formed a committee of representatives from each one of the towns to ultimately review the request for proposal, and then clearly identify a consulting firm to come in and develop the overlay, and then with the intent at the end of the day for all 5 municipalities to adopt this overlay. So therefore you would be protecting those water resources and the natural resources of the Indian Brook and Croton Gorge watersheds. So we are right now, the request for proposal has not been fully developed. I know the town of Cortland is working on it. I did reach out to them weeks ago just to see what their timing is, and I believe they're anticipating having a draft soon. So as soon as I get that, I will bring it back to the board. This particular grant does not require, the only services are actually services that would be like my time as well as some of the other planners' times in the other municipalities. And so that's already worked into, so there would be no cash match for this, and even the $50,000 would be going to the consulting services. So does anybody?
This is something that actually has been in the works for quite some time.
Yes.
I've participated in this small group, and unfortunately, not all the municipalities always show up for the meetings. But we have been trying to get money for this grant for, I think this is, like 4 years maybe. So it's great that the grant money did finally come through, because I think that it was just going to be too difficult for any one municipality to take on the task of developing the overlay zone solo.
Right, and I can tell you that my very first job in Westchester County back in like 2002 was working on this plan. So
Yes.
It has it's taken a very long time to get to this point.
Yes.
So I think it's something that would be very valuable to all the communities, because those are important water resources.
And we have a number of very interested constituents who live in Crotonville who have been involved in this. There is some overlap with the group that's been very concerned about the Croton River and the unique area, which we've talked much about. And we continue to be involved in that group as well. And there does tend to be some overlap in protecting the Croton River as well as the watershed. So this is going to be helpful in the long run to make sure that we're not overdeveloping and that we are growing smartly, I guess would be the best way around our critical resources.
Right, and I think the overall intent has always been not to provide additional layers of, environmental review for those particular areas.
Right.
Um,
Next up.
So the next topic is the open space mapping. So Westchester County is updating its open space map and inventory as part of its Westchester 2033, which it's be an update on its planning policies from their Westchester 2025. And so I'll be undertaking a review of the inventory of open spaces and making any edits so that they can make sure that it conforms to what's existing conditions within the town, and then they can utilize that in their policy documents. But it is also, I think it's a good exercise to go through, because the town is actually looking at its open spaces anyhow as part of like the comprehensive plan process and then some other planning processes. So it will be a win-win for both the county and the town just to have that updated. And then also with McCarthy Drive, the utility and road work, I developed the secret documents for this particular project, which will be back, I believe, before the board at a future work session. I think things went a little bit on hiatus because of the coronavirus, but that will be back shortly as well, and that documentation is done. And then also the North State Road bicycle route planning and design final report was provided to the town board just recently, and I reviewed the draft for technical purposes and provided only minor comments to the consultants, but basically just reviewed it for your final review. And if you have any questions on that, or we can talk about it at a future work session if you like. But I think it does have a lot of really positive and interesting planning concepts in it, and different pieces could be applied over time through grants. And I know there's some additional steps, especially dealing with the grants that would be associated with some of the comprehensive plan work as well. And so some of those initiatives would be worked into that process too. And so then brings me to the last topic of the comprehensive plan process. The comprehensive plan steering committee held its first meeting in February, and the committee reviewed the request for proposals for consulting services for the comprehensive plan. And then that was also, their comments were worked in, and then the draft was provided to the town board. And then, clearly your comments were worked into that, and we sent out the request for proposal. And this past Friday, we received 3 responses. Also, the town board recently requested information on the grants associated with the comprehensive plan, as well as potential budgetary options to consider in light of the current situation for, with the coronavirus and the budgetary effects that is taking place nationwide. So I just wanted to sort of highlight a couple things. First of all, like the original budget was for $340,000 total. This was between 2 separate grants. The first grant, both of them were actually Climate Smart Communities grants, but the first one really was going to be focusing on the North State Road area. And then the second one was really focusing on sustainability elements and a comprehensive plan. So for the $340,000, $50,000 was supposed to be a cash match from the town of Ossining. If I provided an option in the memorandum that was sent to you, that if the town board wanted to consider for reducing their cash match to about $25,000, you could still get $290,000 worth of work. And that would include, the reduction would only include the overall reduction in the consulting services that would be associated with the request for proposal as developing the comprehensive plan. But that doesn't mean that you would get less of a detailed document. What it really would be is that we'd be working, when I say we, Pace University and myself, as well as the planning consultants, would be working to really focus the comprehensive plan on the more important elements. And I think to some extent, this particular sustainability elements of this comprehensive plan is very timely, considering it's going to deal with disaster preparedness, recovery, environmental and economic sustainability measures, as well as planning for a multimodal community. And I think all of these issues have come up over the last few months, dealing with not only economic environmental sustainability, but also even just multimodal. How many more time? You're constantly hearing now communities dealing with people choosing to bicycle as opposed to taking public transportation. So that being said, I think it is a timely thing. Both these grants, one expires in 2023 and the other one expires in 2024. And I think overall, this whole process will probably be about a 2-year process. So the timing does bring you towards the end of getting close to the end of one of the grants being due, and that gives you a little bit of wiggle room, about 6 months, wiggle room from the 2023 deadline. But I also think it's important that I understand, because I hear from other communities too, that when do you start on some of these big planning initiatives, especially when you're dealing with the current situation and you have, other people are dealing with much bigger problems. But I wanted the board to understand the timelines on this particular project, because even you just received the request for proposals. It still needs to be reviewed by the comprehensive plan committee. It would have to be reviewed by you. There would still be interviews that need to be held, and then contracts would have to be negotiated. And then even once that is all done and you get the consultants on board, it's still trying to figure out the framework of where you're going to start moving, the first few steps. So I don't anticipate really anything, especially with the public being involved in any public workshops, not taking place to the fall. So there is a lot of like ramping up in a particular project like this, and it does take time. So I just want the board to be aware of that. So it's not something that would happen tomorrow. It does take time to get these types of situations in play. And I'll also, I also wanted to just make note that I'm working in with a few other different communities now that are actually in the midst of their comprehensive plan processes. And so instead of just stalling, they're coming up with, we're coming up with some different and unique ideas to make sure that the communities are engaged, but doing it, distance, because of the fact that they don't want to stall everything, because once you start getting momentum, you want to keep that forward momentum going. So I'm happy to go into more details about any of the grants, about the different matches, about the comprehensive plan process, or, I'm also, if you want to just continue digesting things, I'm happy to come back at a future work session.
I'd like to thank you for making the memo, or whoever it is that wrote it all out and explained where each grant comes from and how it applies and where our matches are. That really explained it nice and succinctly for me.
Oh, well,
So
good. Thank you.
Questions?
That would be that. A little help from Victoria. Maybe.
Yes, Victoria. Well, you know what? I'll tell you, there was a lot of moving pieces on these grants, so
Yes.
just making sure it's dotting my I's, crossing the T's. So thank you, Victoria.
Yeah, Victoria is like the guru of grants around here. She just gets it, and we appreciate her more than she could possibly imagine.
Absolutely. I could not have said that better myself. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other council members want to ask any questions to Valerie? Have any concerns? Are you still good with us continuing to move forward with this comp plan? I think that it behooves us to do so.
Yeah, I think we should be moving forward. I don't think we should let this situation that we're in just halt everything. And as Valerie said, it's a process. So if we stop it now, then we're going to be that much farther out when we want to restart. So I think we should just continue and see where this goes.
I agree with Councilwoman Shaw.
Okay. Councilman
As long as
Wiltshire?
it's the outreach process part of it, I'm good. I like she said that there are a lot of pieces we need to get in play before the public is really a part of it. Then I'm absolutely fine with continuing those pieces.
Yes, absolutely. And for sure, as everything evolves, we'll be taking a look at what's taking place, every step of the way. So if we need to push off a workshop a little bit because that's more advantageous, then we can do that. There's lots of different avenues you can take, and there's lots of different ways of getting public outreach too. And you know what, more and more over the last like 10 years, there's been a push to try to get the groups within the communities that don't come in person to meetings. So there's a lot of, things that have already been in play with the comprehensive plan processes to reach those, those different community members. So, you know what, now it's even ramped up even more in the last few months. So we will have lots of options. There will definitely be lots of options, and PACE is involved with the community outreach piece, and they love doing community outreach. And they always have lots of unique things to suggest.
Councilman Wiltshire, do you have any comments from your mood lighting area over there?
No, I'm just trying to take some of this in. But I
Okay.
do think that we should not put it off because of what's going on. Because that's only, in fact, you might mess around and lose some of the grant if you don't carry on.
Right.
So I think maybe we should just do the best we can and keep going.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then I think the next steps will be that we're going to probably set up a comprehensive plan steering committee meeting. Clearly it would be online, and talk a little bit about the request for proposals, and we'll distribute that to the town board as well. And we'll talk about next steps, and so that everyone feels comfortable about the speed in which we're moving things forward, but that we're not moving too fast, and we're making sure that everyone is appropriately involved.
Fantastic.
All right, great.
Awesome.
So that summarizes my what I've been up to in the last couple of months.
Thank you so much. That's fantastic. I very
Thank
much
you.
appreciate the update and your willingness to participate and come to our meetings and talk to us all.
Anytime.
Thank you.
All
Awesome.
right. Thank
All right.
you.
Have a good night. Okay.
Yep.
So, last but not least, by any stretch of the imagination, we have talked a little bit in the past about the situation that we are facing with coronavirus and that it is, in fact, unprecedented. We do anticipate that over the course of the coming months, we're going to be seeing reductions in anticipated revenues, as we don't have any idea exactly what our tax collection is going to be looking like. And that's going to require serious consideration about our 2020 budget. Of course, we don't have a crystal ball, but we can make some predictions based upon recession conditions, for example, which we have experienced in the past, as well as taking a look at some of the executive orders, which are changing moment to moment, as we've discussed. So I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Comptroller Dale Brennan and Budget Officer Victoria Caffarelli for a brief presentation reviewing the conversations that we have had internally and with our department heads over the last few weeks in an attempt to address some of these revenue shortfalls that we are anticipating and where we think we might have already realized a little bit of savings, not a lot, but some. I'd like to ask the board and the public to bear in mind, as mentioned multiple times, that this is an ever-changing situation. So even as mentioned just earlier today, the executive order about when our taxes could be collected and if there would be any late fees associated or penalties associated with late payments changed. So, and we're still not sure what exactly that's going to look like. As mentioned before, would it run concurrent with the Board of Legislators legislation that passed? Would that go away completely, or what? We don't know. Will there be any fees? Will there be no fees? Is it only for people with hardships? Is it for anybody? We shall see. So anyway, thanks everybody to your patience as we navigate these truly uncharted waters. And Dale and Victoria, you are on.
Okay, let me see if I can get this screen share a little bit more smoothly than I did before. Okay, so 1 second, full screen. Okay, so yes, like the supervisor mentioned, we have been working with very closely with our department heads over the past week or so. We've met with all but one of our department heads to kind of review the budget line by line and start identifying places where we are seeing some natural savings because our operations have changed pretty dramatically over the past couple of weeks. And also identify some opportunities where we can either reconsider some projects we otherwise would have brought forward, or make some changes where need be. I'm going to kind of start some things off, and then I'm going to have Dale give us some much needed descriptions where she is excellent at. So as a reminder for everybody, we have a couple pie charts of what our budgets look like. Of course, we always are matching our expenditures with our revenues. And so this is a pie chart that shows our expenditures in the general fund. We're primarily focusing on the general fund tonight. Our budget is a little over $5 million. And obviously our largest expenditure is the blue part there, which is called General Government Services, which really encompasses the operations of the supervisor, tax receiver, clerk, of our personnel services, some of the items that really take up our, most of our expenditures. And that's the main portion there, so we'll be discussing that. Dale, is there anything you want to add about this particular chart?
Well, in conjunction with that chart, in terms of the general fund budget for personal services, which is also inclusive of employee benefits, 63.18% of that town general fund budget is for our employees, and to keep services running and to keep our recreation going and the nutrition program going, and the supervisor's office and the town board and the tax receiver, go Holly, and the assessment office, and of course Sue, who is thank goodness she's there being the gatekeeper at 16 Croton, the clerk's office, and then the justice court. So a lot of important functions are covered by the general fund.
They certainly are. So then now we, like I said, match our expenditures with our revenues. So this is our pie chart of where our revenues come from. As you can see, the largest portion comes from real property taxes, which is why we are so concerned about this upcoming deadline on April 30th, because that is when we collect all of this revenue that you see makes up so much of our budget. We do have some other revenue sources like state aid, federal aid, our permits and fees that we discussed earlier with our clerk, other property taxes, which include our pilot payments, which are contractual. So some of these things we know are going to stay consistent, but obviously our biggest concern right now is property taxes. So again, Dale, if there's anything. Oh, no.
Yes, no, that is, because that's actually, the biggest unknown, because we really don't know, locally how our residents have been affected. And it's not that, they just might not be able to pay. And it's a very, very unfortunate situation. So we're just trying to, take the temperature of that and plan accordingly.
And I will say, we have been talking amongst municipal officials in general have been talking about how we are all approaching this. And I think that it's very similar. We all know that we provide so many essential services just to keep things running. And most of us don't have very fluffy budgets at all. We've been going through department by department to really determine what, if anything, we can cut. And we're all kind of just sort of teetering right now on the edge to decide what we're going to have to cut, because we don't have a lot of fluff in our budgets. It's, it's a pretty lean operation, the town. And we do have a lot of intermunicipal agreements with, mostly with the Village of Ossining, to take care of a lot of services for us. And we think that we get a pretty good deal. So unfortunately, and our finance department and Dale Brennan is one of those good deals in our opinion, but critical to our operations, and we are certainly tied at the hip to the village in many ways. We're grateful for that, but we're also again, that's because we're trying to run with less rather than more overhead.
Yes, definitely.
And mortgage recording tax is another one of the
Right.
other additional revenues that we anticipate is going to be less.
That's correct.
And I think the sales tax revenue doesn't come into the general fund budget, right? That's the unincorporated.
That's yes, that's a tan outside, and we'll get to that. That'll be later on our slide presentation.
Right. And just if you've been hearing a lot about, the reduction in sales tax, obviously, because people aren't spending money right now.
Right.
That's just another consideration, but not for this particular budget that we're looking at now. So.
Right.
Okay, so what we kind of came up with, trying to, again, like we noted earlier, this is really a situation that's changing so frequently, but we can kind of start to create some sort of a projection of what we might start to see in the next couple of months in terms of revenue loss. I think just like a lot of municipalities throughout the country are starting to see, it's not really that we're having so many added expenditures because of this scenario. It's really that we're seeing revenue shortfalls. This isn't like a traditional emergency where you have a lot of overtime and you have a lot of, all of these efforts to try to clean up after a storm or anything like that. What we're really seeing is that we're losing revenue. And we're going to have to address that in some way, shape, or form. So we have kind of two scenarios where we're looking at a range of revenue loss of somewhere between $826,000 to about $1,600,000 in some of these areas that we've discussed a little bit, primarily in possibly reductions in real property taxes, as well as some areas. So I'm going to turn it over to Dale for the specifics here, because she's the brains behind this particular operation.
Thanks, Victoria. So for budget number one, some of this was based on recession data Some of it is just kind of getting a feel for, what you think is coming down the pipe, so to speak. In terms of real property taxes, because what happens is at year end, which is inclusive of January and February's collections, we have to make an entry to our tax revenue account, basically, to take out any monies that were not received against the warrant that was issued. So this number represents the 637,000, represents a 2% amount of our current town and county tax warrant that potentially may not be received by February of 2021, which we would then have to take out of basically our fund balance to feed that revenue loss. The reduction in other property taxes is for penalties not being received. Penalties are only recognized on our revenue ledger at the point that an installment for taxes is paid in full. So this is a 10% reduction to tax revenues for penalties. The park rentals we're expecting to be down, along with softball fees for the spring season. That's a $12,000 reduction in revenue. Interest earnings, we're anticipating a 50% drop, although that might be a little high, but we are conservative budgeters, so I follow that lead here too. So we took our revenues down 27,500. I'm reducing your justice court fines and fees for 2 months of lost revenue, especially with court being shut down completely, although I think there will be a lag on revenues as well in that. So that, it's kind of a hit or miss number, but that's 28,645. We're reducing our SNAP fees, our C1s, our C2s, and our transportation since the nutrition program isn't open for people to actually come there. It's going to show in a revenue loss of 6,750. There will be an offsetting expenditure savings, which we'll talk about on the next slide. And for mortgage tax, I'm reducing it a 15% number at this point, and so that's recognized with the 69,150. So in scenario 2, we're going to go one step further, just to make sure we're covering our bases. We're going to make it that it's a 4% reduction in taxes collected for our town and county warrant. So that's a reduction of 1,275,000. We're going to say that penalties on taxes are going to be reduced 90,000 in revenue. Park rentals, softball fees, I can't get that word out. Softball fees, revenue-wise are going to stay at the 12,000 because I'm holding out hope that the fall program will be able to go. I left interest earnings reduction at the same amount because I think that's a pretty solid number. Building fines and forfeitures are going to be reduced for a 4-month period. And let's see. Yes, the senior nutrition program. If we're still going further out in terms of not being able to have it in-house, is going to increase by 13,500, and then taking our mortgage tax revenue number down by 30% is a reduction of 138,300.
Yeah, so again, looking at these kind of two different scenarios. I don't know if the board has any questions at this point. That's kind of a lot of information to take in. Maybe we just want to pause for a second if anybody has questions about these two different scenarios of what we might be looking at in some worst case scenarios.
I mean, am I on mute or on mute? I just wanted to reiterate that, we are also in some areas going to see some savings. For example, we're not collecting for softball, but we're not paying refs for softball or umps. Refs?
Yeah.
Umps.
Victoria, you want to go to the next
Yeah,
slide?
sure.
Yeah, we're gonna,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. So okay. If we're looking at some of these items that are some of these things, like I said, it's these natural savings. First off, if we're looking at some of our personnel expenses, we've asked most of our part-time employees to not report to work, which means we're not paying them. In some situations, that means we're paying for some unemployment insurance or some family medical leave provisions for the federal requirements. That's kind of a minimal expenditure, but if we can do without, we certainly will. We are also seeing some reduced expenditures in our parks department. Again, if we're looking at a spring season where we might not have baseball, we might not have some of the usual things that are going on in our parks. That's a reduction in our ball field maintenance of a couple $1,000s. We're not using our vehicles as much, so we're not seeing as many need for repairs in some of our departments. Again, in our senior nutrition program, yes, we're going to see a reduction in revenue because we're not offering these programs, but at the same time, we're not having the same expenditures. We're not paying for people who teach the art classes and the dance classes. Not paying for some of the little celebrations they like to do. We're not spending as much on meals because, as Kathy mentioned earlier, some of the seniors that would come in for congregate meals are not receiving meals right now. They do have family at home that can help provide those needs for them. We're also likely going to see a reduction in spending on the taxi coupons. I don't think that there are many seniors who are using taxis right now. It's not necessarily the safest thing to do. In our justice court, as we mentioned, the justice court has been administratively closed by New York State, so they're basically not operating right now. However, of course, people have still received parking tickets. They might be paying parking tickets from before. There's still traffic violations. Those things don't change. So even though right now we're not seeing revenues coming in through that department, it's likely when they can resume, there's a little bit of a backlog that they're going to have to address, which will bring up some of those revenues.
And just to add to that, we met with them just for more clarification about what exactly it means that they're closed, and it really means that they're not opening mail and not accepting payments right now for anything that they can accept payments for in the mail. That's not being logged in because that means that there's administrative work that would need to be done, and they're not permitted to do that by the administrative judge.
Right, correct. So everything's just kind of on hold, but of course,
Chief Justice. Yeah, sorry, Chief Justice. I said the wrong one.
Yeah, once it gets up and running, hopefully we'll start to see that those revenues come back or come up again. Again, if we're anticipating not having a spring softball season, that's an expenditure that falls under the town budget, where we pay for some of the personnel, we pay for some of the materials, all those sort of things that we're not going to see. I think I'm gonna, and again, the last little item there, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dale for some of the things in the middle. As we discussed with our clerk earlier, something that we will hopefully begin to implement over the next couple of months, because, I don't think we're going to go back immediately to, what we used to see, what our old normal was. We're going to have a new normal now. We're starting to see in a lot of our departments trying to find ways to optimize existing virtual operations or expand them so that we can resume some of those revenue collections. The tax receiver's office has done an excellent job to really bring that to the forefront for our taxpayers who may in the past have usually paid by check or come in the office or whatever. They're starting to pay online. Same thing in our clerk's office. Kudos to Sudan for looking at those ways that we can bring back some of our normal operations and start to operate in some way, shape, or form as we used to, so we can start to see some of those permits and fees and other revenues come back. Dale, do you want me to take it over for some of the other items there?
Sure. In the 2020 budget, we had budgeted $73,580 in a contingency account in general fund, which is basically like an emergency account for things that come up during the year that we had not planned for, had not budgeted for. So this is the perfect situation to rely on those funds to offset some of the reductions in revenues. Additionally, when we were doing the 2020 budget, and it seems to happen every year, we're budgeting for our health insurance number based on, I usually use a smoothed out ratio of the last 2 or 3 years to determine what the increase is going to be for the following year, because it's not until December, after we've already gone through the budget process, that we actually get the final increase to our health insurance rates. And while I had budgeted at an 8% increase for health insurance expense this year, it actually ended up being a 1.5% increase. So we have a little bit of extra there, which will help us out as well to cover any unrealized revenues. Additionally, every year the general fund does a transfer over to the Dale Cemetery Fund to support those operations as we go through this process. And if we find the general fund is going to have a shortfall that needs to be covered, we can review that transfer to the cemetery fund and potentially use Dale Cemetery Fund balance to fill the budget gap for that fund. Additionally, I've done one FEMA webinar, have filed the request for public assistance. Thank you, Dana, for helping out with that on Friday, so that we are all set to be able to submit for any covered FEMA costs associated with COVID. There is another webinar that's going to provide, I hope, some more information that I signed up for on Thursday. Some of the things that I'm hoping they drill down on that they did not have full clarity on during the last webinar was costs for teleworking. So for the additional laptops the town had to purchase or anything of that nature to support people working from home, I'm hoping that those costs have been enveloped into the scope for reimbursement, because that would be very, very helpful. So I will keep you posted.
Yes. We've also heard a little bit from, participating in phone calls at the county level and hearing from some of our state and also federal representatives that I know that on the federal government level, there are some conversations going on right now in the Senate and in the House of Representatives that, again, this isn't a traditional disaster. We're not looking at these huge expenditures. We're looking at revenue shortfalls. So we're hoping that perhaps some of the assistance packages that come down from the federal government will include some funding to assist with these revenue shortfalls as opposed to just reimbursing for expenditures. So, this is something that we are not alone in needing. There are municipalities across the country that are going to need this assistance. So, we really need to continue to advocate to those representatives on the federal level to consider that in any of their potential relief packages associated with this crisis, because it really is something like we've never seen before. So those are some of the items that we've identified thus far. Obviously this is a moving target and things are changing pretty rapidly. So we'll continue to review these budgets closely with our department heads. We have also asked our department heads to not undertake any expenditures at this time. Any expenditure over $2,000 does go through office prior to being committed to through a order requisition as we normally do. So, we're really keeping a close eye on these expenditures and making sure that in addition to some of these larger items we've identified, we're really keeping a close eye on where our departments are spending and where we can maybe do without or try to identify some savings. So that is what we have on the general fund, and so we have a little bit on the town side fund, but it's a little bit of a different picture here. Like we discussed a little bit, sales tax revenue, we're seeing some increased revenue in our building department associated with some of the building projects that have been going on. Our building department has noted to us that although they can't issue building permits because there's kind of been a statewide ban on most construction projects, they still have been receiving a lot of interest from residents who are interested in doing some renovations to their house. So they anticipate that when they can get back up and running and start issuing building permits and contractors can come out to job sites, we will start to see an added increase in revenue there. And I just want to note, and then again, I'll turn it over to Dale, as we discussed with Valerie today, the cash match funding for the comprehensive plan would come under the town outside budget primarily. It would mostly come out of this budget. So in terms of some savings on the expenditure side, we're going to see if the board does decide to move forward with a little bit of a reduced budget in this area, we're going to see those savings in this fund. And I will turn it over to Dale for some of the more specifics.
Thanks, Victoria. In terms of the town outside fund, this is where sales tax comes into play and the potential reduction for that. The town has always budgeted conservatively in all cases, but especially in this case going into 2020. During August of 2019, there was an additional 1% sales tax approved. That was then, a projection was put out by the county that was basically said we would receive an additional potentially $250,000 in revenue on our sales tax. But at that time, there was no proven number of that amount. We had no factual base to go from. The first quarter that we received, which included a piece of the 1% sales tax, didn't fully have a full quarter in it, so we could not rely on that. The fourth quarter of sales tax we received well after the budget was adopted. We did not receive the fourth quarter until February of this year, which then went back and was recognized as an accounts receivable for the town for accounting purposes. But at that point, it did prove out that the additional amount was in fact pretty spot on to what we would be receiving going forward, inclusive of the 1% additional sales tax. So instead of projecting a decrease off of our budget amount, I just decided let's go to what the actual amount of sales tax would have been, all things considered, before any reductions. So our sales tax actual projected number would have been $1.235 million. On that amount, we only budgeted $750,000 in our 2020 budget. So this gives us a little bit of a comfort level, because sales tax revenues would have to be reduced by 39% before we reach our actual budget number. So it's a bit of a safety net there. When I was looking at the county's budget and what they were speaking about reducing their sales tax number by, they have a $741 million in sales tax budgeted, and their reduction number is around 17% reduction. So I think we're well in the lane, having a 39% gap there. Year to date for the building department, we've already exceeded our budgeted revenue number by $40,000, $523, and I'm anticipating that will offset our mortgage tax shortfall that will probably occur. So we'll cover 48% of a reduction for the mortgage tax that's attributed to the town outside. In terms of the comprehensive plan match, though, the town does have 50,000 in contingency for the town outside fund, which could be used towards the comp plan, and it's already in the budget.
Excellent. Okay. Well, so this is the end of our little slide presentation. So again, I'll open it back up to the board if you have any questions of what we presented. Again, I know it's all some speculation we have to do here, but at least we can start. We're starting the conversation, continuing to monitor the situation very closely, so that when we do get to the point of having to make these really kind of difficult decisions, we have some plans in place to address those issues.
So I greatly appreciate all the work that went into putting these projections together. And I just wanted to add that while it wasn't really incorporated in here, there's a very real possibility that we are going to have to consider canceling some of our much loved town-sponsored events. Ones that it seems hard to believe that we would even consider canceling include our Independence Day fireworks, our summer concert series, and our haunted hayride. And even though we would love to be able to say that we were doing it just for financial reasons, I think that this would be a huge disappointment to our community if we were allowed to actually host these events and didn't. However, we think that with the social distancing requirements that are going to continue to extend well beyond when we have these events scheduled, it's unlikely that we will be able to host these events for that exact reason. And if we do not host these events for that reason, then we're looking at an almost $40,000 additional savings, which would be from our town general fund. So I just want to open it up to my board colleagues for any questions, comments, anything that you have to add.
Oh, Liz, I think you're
still muted, Liz.
Yeah.
And will continue to do, because I know this is going to be a very long on process. I'm thankful that we were conservative in our budgeting, and that I think it's going to be years before we actually get back to the revenues that we were expecting. So, I'm very thankful that the supervisor and budget director and the board decided to early on ask the department heads to start looking at every penny they were spending. And I think the department heads have been really good about understanding what the situation is and trying to comply. So I want to thank them too.
All right. Anybody else? Not seeing everybody now. Anybody else? Councilman Meyer, Councilman Welcher, Councilwoman Shaw.
I want to Victoria and Dale and yourself, I want to say thank you to you guys for keeping things going. They look like, I know it's a lot of work and it's time consuming, but thank you anyway for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I just wanted to also add before we have our receiver of taxes with us this evening, Holly Perlowitz, who has continued to collect our town and county taxes. And we didn't ask for a report that was incorporated in this, but I was just wondering, Holly, if you would like to just weigh in a little bit on our collection to date and how we're doing compared to last year.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Just making sure. So we're actually keeping in pace with last year, thanks to our Ossining taxpayers who have reacted very well, are using our online system, Those who've never used it before are being walked through it, and they're adapting really, really well. So again, we're on pace thus far. Now, the we still have, a good portion, about 43% of the warrant that still comes in the last 2 weeks. So there's 3 more days in this week and 4 days next week. So we still have 7 business days, if you would, for taxes to come in. And I expect, I expect a lot to come in. So I think that the phones have been ringing off the hook, just because it's different and it's new. I think we're all looking for it's hard to imagine, some silver lining. But a lot of people who hadn't signed up for alerts, both on the tax receivers as well as on the town, are now, we're able to sign them up because it's a good way of communicating. But lots of questions and lots of looking for assurance on. I mailed it to people who are used to coming in versus mailing or calling to validate that we got what they mailed. But I have to say, we have some pretty amazing taxpayers. Every call usually ends up with us just caring about each other, and I find that an amazing testament to the humanity in this community. So again, we're on pace with last year. So the next 7 business days will tell us a lot. But as I tell them all, your tax office is open. We may not be able to see you. And I wish I could send them all chocolate because they were used to that when they came in. But we're doing, with the office is open, we're just doing things in a bit of different ways. Instead of them getting their receipts stamped when they walk in, we're mailing them back to them when they mail it in. And a lot of email communication and a lot of phones as well, just for them to find out the process. So I'll be able to
just to remind everybody that there still is that dedicated drop at the
Yes,
Ossining Post Office.
Thank you, Dana. For
Right.
reminding me.
So
Yeah.
we want to remind people of all the ways that they can continue to pay. And
Yes, thank you for
right at the top of our webpage, it says pay your taxes online. So you can go online and pay your taxes if you have your bill in your hand. It makes it easy. If you don't, you can just plug your address in, right, and your name, and it'll pop up. So,
Yeah, and there are those who don't have access to a computer, and they can call, and I can process the payment, and I've been doing a lot of that. I can process the payment for them, or if they're out and about at their jobs, and it's just hard for them, and while they have me on the phone, they want to do it. We're doing that as well. So they can pay it online. They can mail it in from any mailbox. But there's also a dedicated mailbox at the post office, and I describe
slot inside the post office. Yeah,
slot exactly. I describe exactly where it is. You walk in the post office; it's not to the right where the counters are. You walk straight, and it's where the slots are inside. And when you deposit it there, just so that people understand, when you put your mail any place in the community, in a mailbox, it goes to White Plains first. In this particular case, it doesn't. It comes straight to us the next day. So if you put it in before 5 o'clock, it gets postmarked and gets delivered to us that very next morning. If you put it in after 5 p.m., it gets postmarked for the following day. So it's been working well.
And so thank you very much. So we have, again, we've continued to have that robust collection. We're very, very appreciative to our community for all of those who have been able to pay on time. I will say that the executive order does not include escrow payments. So hardship, the banks are still going to continue to pay those escrow payments they're still expected to pay them by April 30th.
They have already, Dana. We've gotten two of the large tax service agencies have paid already. So.
Right, but it's just not all of them. But so we're still expecting a couple more, I think, right? And I just wanted to make sure that people understood. I think that Holly, you had mentioned what 35% of our tax payments are paid by escrow, approximately.
Correct.
Somewhere between 35 and 40. So we do anticipate that money will be there. Are there any other questions from council members about our look to conserve wherever possible, and then our anticipation that we might have to do even more than that in the not too distant future? All right. Well, thank you very much. This has been long, but I hopefully everybody thinks a productive evening. We downloaded a lot of information for everybody this evening, and hopefully we will continue to work very hard to serve our public in every way that we can. And you should know that our board is here at your service, and we all are members of this community. We care very much about you, about everybody, and we want to continue to help wherever we can. So please do reach out to us. You can call 762-6001 is the supervisor's office. Right now, I believe that's bouncing to Victoria, or 762-6002 is bouncing to Karina, also my office, and we are answering calls and directing people to where they need or looking to help people wherever we can. So have a quiet week at home. Please get some fresh air when the weather is good. Remember to wear your masks to protect others in case you don't know that you are sick, and you are. Take your temperature if you happen to be a little bit older, to make sure that you have a good monitor of where you are and that you stay healthy. And if there are any signs that you are not healthy, that you know that you need to make sure that you stay in even more, and make sure that you do reach out for resources because we have so many of them that are available for help when need be. We'll keep you posted about the tax deadlines as we get more information, and we will see you next week right back here on Zoom. I always want to sing the Zoom song. I know some of you folks know what that is. I know some of others of you do not, but nevertheless, we're gonna zoom. Okay, how to do it. All right, everybody, have a great week. And do I need a motion to go into executive session? I think I do.
Mm-hmm.
Can I have a motion to go into executive session for legal counsel, personnel, advice of counsel, personnel, and contracts?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, and then I thank you all. Have a great night. And April 28th is our next legislative session, so please stay tuned for the Zoom access information for that meeting. Have a great night, everybody. Great week.